speaking opportunities, I've had
All
two.
right.
I'm going to have
We're
to
going
figure out.
live. All right. Hello. Welcome. We are at 11 o'clock Pacific time straight up. Welcome to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. This year, it's with Sue Mathieson from all the way down under in Melbourne, Australia. And it is for speakers. Now, I say that a little tongue in cheek, as I like to say everything I say on a Friday. This is for speakers and non-speakers alike. I say that because the first 10 tips in the book that we're working through are all about the integrity game. Anybody can play the integrity game, but definitely speakers should. I recommend. Like, what would my first set of tips be for any speaker? Play the integrity game. So that gives us 10 tips. So we're in tip number 3 today. We'll review the first 2 that we covered. But after we play the integrity game, we're going to move on to the next section of the book. Section 2 is going to, that's tip number 2. Never mind. Let's go to sections. Come on, help me out. Where are my sections? Did I create banners for the sections?
I thought you did.
Yeah, I thought I did too. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Bring out your brand. So in section 2, we're going to bring out our brand. We are going to talk about, before we get into speech writing, which will be section 3, we want to be fearless in our approach to preparing for any speech. And one of those steps actually is so important. We break it down into its 10 tips. Let's see, Patty's joining us. And then we're going to end with 12 tips on practice building a practice from learning how to speak to being a speaker to having talks to building a practice out of speaking, whether it's a business or it's helping you advance your career. We're really going to talk about 12 accountabilities of any business. So again, the back of the book has 12 tips for speakers and non-speakers alike. And the first section that we're in, playing the integrity game, speakers and non-speakers alike, definitely bring out your brand. We all have a personal brand. We're all part of a team brand or a community brand, right? All of us need to be thinking about and having exercises and activities and strategies to establish and reimagine, reinvent, tighten, strengthen our brand. And with that foundation of structural integrity, with that courage, that confidence, that excitement for our brand promises that we put out into the marketplace, then we're ready to write speeches and get into the details and the mechanics and the forms, the functions, the elements. And of course, we might get so good at it that we build a whole practice, a whole speaking practice. So before I get too far into this and before certainly we read anything word for word, let me introduce my co-host and co-author from all the way down under, Sue Mathieson. How are you, Sue? What's happening this, well, for Saturday for you?
Yes, it is Saturday morning. Yeah, look, it's weekend. Been a good week, been pretty busy, but yeah, good to be here and have a chat about all things integrity game for speakers. So
yeah. And let's why don't you join me, Sue, in saying hello to Patty? Patty is
hi,
here,
Patty.
the inner business coach who was great, kind enough to write the copy here on the back cover on the top part. Patty, do you have anything to say? Any words of encouragement or any victories? It's nice to see you here as always.
No, I just am looking forward to seeing and hearing tip 3.
All right. Well, you're in luck because tip 3 follows tips number 1 and 2. And so now I can go ahead and say in tip number 1, again, we're playing the integrity game. So tip number 1 is declare your purpose, right? And we're going to come back to purpose in section number 3 because it's the first of 8 steps when we actually get ready to write a speech, draft a speech, create an outline around a speech. Like when we're starting a specific speech preparation process, it starts with purpose as well. But the foundation for being a speaker at all starts with purpose. And we talked about that in tip number 1. Then last week, we talked about gifts and packaging gifts as competitive advantages. We talked about gifts being anything other than the average. Nobody notices the average, but below average, we notice. Above average, we notice, right? So all of that is gifts in the sense because you could do something with that. The above average and the below average are all motivational pieces. They're all gifts that we can all aspire to or push off of or anything in between. So having said that as our first 2 tips, we're going to build on potential gifts. And now we're going to ask the third set of questions in the integrity game, which are questions of potential. Sue, you want to go ahead and get us started on tip number 3? Page number 34, if anybody's following
Absolutely.
along at home.
Yes. So reading from the tip. Jeff, when I put my education and my life and work experience together, there are a multitude of topics I could speak on. But how do I know which one to choose?
All right. Well, I think you went from asking an easier question to perhaps asking the wrong question. I mean, why choose when you can integrate? Pressuring yourself to choose just one thing to focus on when you could speak about many things is kind of like choosing one person in an audience to speak to when you are there, purpose, and capable of touching everyone in the audience, gifted. Which brings me to the idea of potential. The third set of questions the integrity game asks us to answer is about our potential. Broken down by time or chronologically, we start to declare our potential with a vision. When you look out as far into your future as a speaker or as a non-speaker as you possibly can, when you look out into your future as you possibly can, what do you see? Visualize standing in one place and turning around 360 degrees. Take a picture of all that you see so you can describe it. Write it down. Explain it to another. And here's in bold, here's the Klubeck snack. All the things that make up a complete description of everything you can see when you look out into your future as far as you can see. That is your vision. So as a speaker, Sue, what is your vision? What can you see? Once you have that vision, once you can describe it vividly and clearly, you can declare your mission. What is the biggest achievement and accomplishment that would prove you're on your way to that vision? It is not something that you can achieve today or this week. It is still quite a ways away, but it's huge. National Speakers Hall of Fame, winning a Toastmasters competition, breaking 6 or 7 figures in speaking fees or back of room sales, getting to 50,000 followers or subscribers. What is your mission is not asking about vagaries or empty words that sound good. And here's another Klubeck snack. A mission is an accomplishment or achievement that takes a long time to earn and proves we are on our way to our vision. It is something that is perhaps several years away from being achieved, but it's not as far out as we ask you to look when defining your vision. It's closer than farthest out, but still large enough to be more than a year or 2 away. Objectives are for the annual time frame. That's there's our vision that puts us on a mission that breaks down to our annual objectives. By this time next year, Sue, what must you have that you don't have now? What must be done that isn't done now? What must you learn that you don't know now? To make focused progress towards your mission vision, what are your annual objectives as a speaker? Is it to develop a signature talk, produce your speaker series e-course, earn your Toastmasters certificate, produce a media kit or a speaker reel, serve on a board at your local chapter of the National Speakers Association? What are your annual objectives? What are the 3 or 4 dominant objectives that must be met by this time next year? One of my favorite Klubeck snacks is that I'm not a big fan of building a mansion on top of quicksand. What I mean by that is why choose one topic to speak about when you can integrate all of the topics that will help you achieve your vision, mission, and objectives. Said another way, when you have a clear vision that puts you on a huge mission with achievable annual objectives, it will be easy to know what you want to talk about. It will be easier to see how all the things you can talk about can integrate into the speeches that achieve your objectives, advance towards your mission, realize your vision. The integrity game is a perfect example. As a 10-point model, it is one thing, but it is one thing that integrates a lot of things I can talk about.
And I can see that attempting to choose one or more specific topics begins to sabotage who I am in. It lessens the value of my life experiences and therefore the value that I can bring to the audiences. And I realize too that there are many speaking opportunities I've had to date that I haven't consciously put together in chronological order as part of my mission. I've done interviews on stages in front of large audiences, many Toastmasters speeches, spoken at conferences, and presented at countless executive meetings. without a really clear vision of myself as a speaker, my objectives haven't been clear. They've been rather haphazard. Great experiences, but not really pulling me forward to where I realise I'd rather be going. Given that, I have some work to do, particularly with my vision and objectives. What comes next, though?
Well, that's a great question. And coincidentally, it brings up the very next tip. Read on. But cliffhanger, we'll get to that next week. Got to wait till next Friday. But I'll just, as a preview, next Friday, we're going to make smart even smarter, because what's next is goal setting. And I could talk about it conversationally, back to the chronology of potential. You know, farthest out I could possibly see is vision. Then closer than that, but still a far ways out, is mission. And then 1 year, annual objectives, is where we got in tip number 3. Next year, we're going to go inside the 1 year to 3 to 6 months, 3 to 12 months. And that's the land of goal setting. And so a lot of people know about goal setting out there, but Sue and Patty, you know, we have worked, countless hours on how to infuse smart goal setting with more accountability, more behavioral change, which is why people would need coaches and mentors to change behavior. So we're going to focus on behavioral change in our goal setting conversation. But that's next week. For today, let's talk about the chronology of potential. How does this break down? First of all, Patty, let me invite you. Do you have any comments or questions or feedback on the tip? How did it come out? We're still getting our rhythm of reading. What, because you have conversations and you capture dialogue, and then it gets in print, and print isn't always the same as voice. And so you make those tweaks for print, but then you read the dialogues out loud, and then wait a second, are we transferring it? Is it coming through? Help us out, Patty. Give us your feedback here.
I do feel like it's coming through. I like the potential. We've talked about that with the integrity game, but I like that you looked at the chronology of it and how that integrates with the goal setting. I thought that was really, really smart.
Well, thank you, because just to be transparent at all times and all ways, as best we can, right? There's some repurposing, right? The integrity game is its own book, and the concept of potential, the topic of potential, gets introduced a certain way in that book. So when you are, as I am, right, repurposing some content, like I'm content, whether it's my coach's training or my Speech 103 course or my soft skills training library, or right, I've got a kind of a reputation as content guy. One of the things that we want to do when we repurpose is we want to edit, we want to reword, we want to repackage. So the word potential shows up a couple places in my life, but here it made sense to, this is the first time I've put it this way in writing, the chronology of potential, using that time frame. And then, when we do the 90-day challenge through the integrity game, or if people want to get into the group coaching program on the integrity game, we just summarized its 10 points to be the first section of this book, right? So it's cross-referencing and cross-promotional and intertextual references. And who's really good, by the way, Patty? Who's really, really, really good at intertextual references? And I learned this from Dr. Mike Reel, rest in peace, director of the School of Communication when I was at San Diego State. Deep breath is The Simpsons. The Simpsons, the cartoon show The Simpsons. Do you know how many people we know that have had their Simpsons version made of them? And then so Simpsons is classic about, they create the program to see what other texts from pop culture can they weave into their 30-minute little episode, and then it creates a familiarity and a surprise, and that seeing a text inside of a text, a reference to another text, makes us feel a sense of connection, and we're in the know, and we get the joke. And Disney's good at doing this, and the Marvel superhero movies, and do you guys understand? So very same thing, by having the 10 tips from the integrity game, or the whole model, to show up as one section of this book, right? So I'm kind of excited about that. But that was a long way of elaborating on, thank you for appreciating that I wrote it, the chronology of potential, rather than just saying potential. As you've just seen it as potential, one word, in other contexts. But in this context, we're really coaching and mentoring speakers. We want to hold people's hand and have them look up and look out as far as they could possibly see. And then what about a little bit closer? And what about next year? Okay, what do you need to achieve by April 1st, July 1st, October 1st to achieve those objectives to be the speaker you want to be? Well, excellent comment. Thank you for pumping me. I'm all pumped up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, and well, just expanding on that last bit that I read out too. It was my experience to date as a speaker, I guess, came before my learning and application of the integrity game. And so, on reflection, I can see just how random my experiences were. And because I didn't have a vision, I didn't have a specific mission from a speaking perspective. And so I'm sort of grabbing at opportunities rather than being quite intentional, having a focus in terms of how does this fit in to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. There's so many. Oh, go ahead. Do you have more to say there?
Yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah.
No. So you go.
Well, first of all, I think that came through in your portion of the dialogue towards the end of the tip. I think what you just said came through, but it comes through better when you elaborate like that, right? When you say, hey, look, most of my experience as a speaker came before I got familiar with the integrity game and before I've used the integrity game to really center my attention and center my focus and resilient. And so I love that, you nod for the integrity game, right? And validate the tip. Here's what's cool. What I started with, went from the asking a better question or an easier question to perhaps the wrong question. It shifts the question. In other words, what should I talk about? It almost eliminates that, or it answers it. It's like, instead of one thing I should talk about, it's like, look, I need to talk about everything that's going to help me achieve my vision, mission, and objectives. Like, what's my vision? What are my mission? What am I? So you follow. So when I look at it through that lens, right, it's easy for me right now. Like, let me ask Patty a question. Patty, you're like, you know me so well. Patty, off the top of your head, what's a number that represents how many? I don't know, let's just say how many different standalone, where they'd stand on their own, right? Even if they made references to each other, but they'd stand how many unique 30 to 60 minute talks, do you think I've got in my tool chest? How many unique 30 to 60 talks do you think I could give?
Oh, I'm sure you're up to 50 or more.
Right? 50 or more. Right, perfect. That's exactly right. Whether it's less or more, that's the kind of, if you would have said 6 or 12, whatever. But yeah. But guess what? Because I know my vision and because I know my mission and because I have annual objectives, I'm only talking about the integrity game and being the world's best speakers, coach, and mentor. And that's it. So there's 48 other things I ain't talking about.
Right.
Even though I could. And guess what? Next year, I might talk about 6 of those 48. And last year, I was talking about coaching a lot. You guys understand? What are my annual objectives? I have an annual objective of marketing myself as the world's most preferred and fun speaker, coach, and mentor. All right, here we are. Get a clue at 52 with Sue Mathieson from all the way down under. We just got done reading tip number 3, the chronology of potential. And I love the dialogue afterwards. It's so exciting. You understand why I get in such a good mood. I like this little eyeball thing up at the top. There's a couple eyeballs that have been dipping in and out. So I just want to say thanks to anybody out there that's taking time away from anything else you could be doing to check in a little bit. The recording is going to post, and all of these are documenting. And we're having a conversation now about the chronology of potential. And remember, it comes from purpose first, then gifts. If I know my purpose and I know my gifts, it should be easier to answer questions of potential now. If I know that I'm on the planet to play the integrity game, promote the integrity game, reproduction and integration. That's why I'm on the planet. So I'm making recordings. I'm putting the word out. I'm doing what I'm doing. What are my gifts? Storytelling. On and on. And so now I can imagine a potential. How many tips can I read? How many books can I publish? How many people can I train? How many countries can I work in? How many students can I get past the fear of public speaking. I could start to, quantify the task, and we're going to break it down even further next week with goals when we get quarterly. And it's integrity game helps us get really transactional after that. But that's what was back to your comment, Sue, when you said, before I learned how to play the integrity game, I was willy-nilly a little bit. It was random. It was, I was good. I was effective. I was complimented. I was praised, but it was disconnect. In one word, can I? And then I'll hand it over to you to transactional. Whereas once we play the integrity game, all of our every speaking opportunity can be transformational if it plugs right into our vision, mission, and objectives. Go ahead.
Yeah, and on that, there was something else I was going to mention, but before I go back to that, it's the integration of purpose, gifts, and potential that becomes that transformation piece internally. So you're not only shifting in terms of how you show up as a speaker and shifting from being transactional to transformational, but internally, as you're developing as a person, that becomes your own transformation. And that's what I've noticed too, and probably for anyone that's listening in or reading the book, to not get caught up in that when you are asking yourself those questions of purpose, gifts, and now potential as tip 3, to not get stuck in that I have to have that in concrete. It's being open to, this is a development. This is something that's going to become more meaningful as you do a deeper dive into it. And it will change, potentially. It will shift, and that's okay. But it's taking the time to at least start asking those questions so that you start to form just a far more defined, from a potential perspective, you know what your vision is, and then that helps too with your decision making. What do I say no to? What do I say yes to? Where do I put my focus? So then your effort, your commitment of time and resource becomes more effective too, and you start to level up quickly, more effectively.
It's counterintuitive how desperately freedom and framework need each other.
Yes, yeah.
It's counterintuitive,
and I love that freedom within the framework.
Yeah. And that's what I'm feeling in your comment, right? It's like, hey, it gives me the framework, it gives me the resilience and the screening mechanism, but it's an evolution. It gives me courage to move forward. Whereas the question that you asked at the outset of that got the tip going, it was like, to refer to Star Wars, right? Jedis don't think in absolutes, right? The pluralistic, the possibilities are, you follow. And so when we're focused on just transactional, getting the speaking gig right, what do I talk about, versus focused, through the lens of our vision, mission, objectives, we see all the on and on, the transformational side of it. And it is just wonderful that the framework is what allows you to be more free. Is that's what I was hearing you say. It gives you confidence. Exactly. Like, instead of being stuck in paralysis and a fear or a transactional focus, right? Expanding it and embracing whatever this integrity game is doing. I mean, it's still so young, right? That we're still learning what the power of it, just answering all these questions, really does. So, but you have a personal experience with it that I can listen to you talk about for a while. Now, do you have a specific example of where you might have been either a speaking gig that you've had recently that you prepared for through the lenses of the integrity game, or how the integrity game itself gave you this freedom to move forward, whereas you may have been stuck otherwise in the past?
Definitely. When when I spoke so it helped me in terms of how I wanted to frame what I was talking about. I was being interviewed at a women's conference last year. The focus from the interviewer's perspective was she wanted to focus on my hiking experience that I'd had back in July. But I wanted to use that as an analogy for talking about purpose, gifts, and potential. And so it helped me to integrate the story and meet her objective of talking about my hiking, but helped me to integrate how did I want to frame that was going to serve me in terms of the message I wanted to get across. So it helped me to process my thinking and present the story in a way that was meaningful for the audience and gave them the integration, gave them something tangible to take away too, that they could apply in their own life.
But you were still serving your autobiographical interest as well. You still it was a balanced consideration, an integrated choice of all the things you could talk about so yeah, I don't know if I'm doing a good job capturing the feeling. It seems so intangible, but we're trying to make it very tangible, very actionable. We're committed to the how much better. We're all capable of giving a great speech. Anybody can just get up there and go give a speech. Go ahead, go for it. And public speaking has been taught for a long time. And we're going to get into I tried to take the classic public speaking, coaching that exists in any public speaking class and bring it to life, in our interactions, because you can't get away from the fun of the fundamentals, right? How do you prepare? Right. How do you prepare for a speech? But what we're trying to shine a light on here, which hopefully not a lot of other public speaking books or courses are doing, is how much looking within, how much internal work, how much, the integrity game, how much the integrity game can help improve, make better, that much better any speech that might have already been good otherwise, but how much better things will be, how much more firm we'll be in our disposition, how much more projection we'll have in our voice when it's coming from such a place of foundation rather than
and that was something I noticed. It allowed me, because we hear sort of this buzzword around authenticity. People want to see that authenticity. You by working through those steps and applying that in sort of my own thinking, but also how I presented, it allowed me, again, coming back to that freedom within the framework, it allowed me to show up quite naturally. I felt way more confident because it was coming from an internal place. It wasn't a script that I'd learned and that I had to memorize. So that confidence and being able to just have the conversation with the interviewer, essentially, but still be very specific about the links that I wanted to make in what I spoke about.
Yeah, it sounds different, right? If it's here's what sounds different. Oh, I can talk about it, whatever you want me to talk about, whatever your audience needs, I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about. Versus, you know what? I do 5 talks, 3 of which I think could be great for your audience. Let me summarize those for you and let's make a good choice together.
Yeah.
Do you understand the difference? So we also eliminate that selfless piece that overly servient, subservient, and do you follow the self? You know what I mean? Like, I'd speak on anything that moves, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, when we always are coming from a place. It was funny. At one point I was like that, to be vulnerable. When the first time I ever gave the integrity game as a keynote, it was just me to try to spice up the list. I put the usual suspect list out there. Jim Rastusha, if you're out there, Jim, props to you for referring me to the Specialty Advertising Association of California to give a virtual keynote in August of 2020, pre-vax COVID. And you remember it was a month or so before my dad passed, 3 weeks before my mom passed. And there I was. But, months before that, when I was being selected to give the keynote, I remember giving them the list, right? Goal setting, time management, leadership, any boring topic that just looks and sounds like noise because it's watered down and overdone. And I put the integrity game. And sure enough, they're like, what's this?
Yeah.
And it was a transactional thing at the time. Like, hey, here's some topics, pick one. Right? Who know what they were doing during COVID? Right? Yeah. And so, but when they picked the integrity game, and then I started to put the integrity game together, and we're in tip 3 of the 10-point model, all of a sudden, it became my vision. It put me on a mission. I've achieved several of my annual objectives and have new objectives. And it's an interesting thing. I'm joining you in it's like you're not alone here, Sue. I used to do speaking before I played the integrity game too. Patty, what do you got? You got something, Patty?
Well,
am I right? You have something?
I'm listening to Sue talking and now you as well. And, being the inner business coach, I'm thinking about the internal aspect of, seeing our vision and our mission and our objectives. And it's sort of that thing whereas you can't sell anything until you've sold yourself. So you can't really give a really powerful speech until you have internalized it in your own life.
Well,
that's my thought.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it complements, I think, what I was saying, because I said anybody can give a good talk. I gave lots of them, but I don't know if I've ever spoke as powerfully as I have since I formulated the integrity game. I don't know if my speaking has ever been stronger. Because
you internalized what you were.
It's not transactional. It's part of this mission I'm on. It's part of my purpose in life now. I've got annual objectives for this thing. And so thank you for that, Patty. Thank you very much. All right, let's head into last call. We're 3 tips into January, 3 tips into 2024, 3 tips into the book. And we're just getting started. But we got 7 more tips to play in the integrity game, and then we'll move on to which is kind of almost like a deep dive on tip number 2, which is gifts. We talked about last week, gifts, which it comes down to competitive advantage. And when we talked about package of gifts, we're going to do a deep dive rather than just mentioning it as 1 point on a 10-point model. We're going to spend all 10 tips in section number 2, bringing out your brand. And once you have your integrity game played, you know who you are overall, now you know what your brand is. Now I think you're ready to start. You got the foundation, you built the structure, now you're ready to start doing interior design, right? Then we're going to start ready to have people over. Then it's going to be, nightcaps and dessert and adult beverages after, on and on and on. I'm being so happy Friday, everybody.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. Last call. Well, you see how I think chronologically, categorically, etc. So, and by the way, just in case nobody knew, I'm Jeff Klubeck. I'm founder and author of the Integrity Game, and I'm joined by co-author for Get a Klu in 52 for speakers Sue Mathieson and the inner business coach Patty Blakesley. And we welcome each and every one of you to the last call portion of Get a Klu in 52 for speakers, tip number 3 here, where we have been playing the Integrity Game overall, but tip number 3 in this section is the chronology of potential, which breaks down to vision, mission, and annual objectives. Farthest out, further out, 1 year, and then we're going to get inside of the year, quarterly, starting next week with smart goal setting. We're going to make smart smarter. Last call for comments, questions, jokes, riddles, haikus, well wishes for the weekend, or expressions of gratitude before we sign off on week 3.
For me, it's great again to be here. The whole experience of being co-author was wonderful, and certainly this tip of potential is one of my favorite out of the 10 points, along with the first 2 that we've talked about, purpose and gifts, And I love the three together. I think they make a really neat package, and just it's exciting. It's for anyone that is new to this thinking and is feeling a little bit challenged by, do I really want to ask myself those questions? Don't hang back. Just get into it, because it's challenging, but it opens up some really great thinking. And I know that, the three of us, as we've wrestled with these questions of the integrity game, have just had so much fun with it. And it's life-changing.
Yeah, it's obviously we're in last call right now with my smiley face, last call, and we're wrapping things up. Yeah, I mean, when I look out as far into the future as I could possibly see, I see thousands, if not millions, of people sharing the language of the integrity game. It's 10 things that we all need to learn, right? And what you just commented on, like it's a shared language, so it's a framework that we can. It elevates how quickly we communicate with each other and how efficiently we can solve problems and find solutions and get answers, right? And I have a vision that times thousands and millions, right? Patty, what have you got? Last call, comments, questions.
Well, I found that this is my bookmark for this game, for this book. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. And that's by John Muir, who was the founder of the Sierra Club and a great naturalist. But I think it's very appropriate. Nothing stands alone. It's all connected. And I love that about the integrity game.
Yeah. Well, the integrity game loves that about you. It's mutual and integrated and so forth. Well, I'm pleased. I've got a big smile on my face. What a great thing every week. I'm loving what we're up to. And Sue, thank you for all your contributions to this edition of Get a Clue in 52. I didn't take too much time talking about the others. Everybody, there'll be other weeks in the future where I'll do the rundown again. But today I wanted to get right into it. And, it's exciting. It's January. I guess it's not too early to be thinking about next year's. What am I going to do for Get a Clue in 52 next year? Is it too early to be thinking about that? I'm having a lot of fun right now. But thank you, Patty, for your contributions and your attendance. And Sue, it's just wonderful to collaborate with you on this and putting it out there. I'm really excited when I think about a year from now and these 52 recordings are going to be posted in our social. They're there. So we're doing something for the future as well as in the moment, and it certainly makes my Friday wonderful. So thank you guys. I'm filled with gratitude. Have yourselves a great weekend, the rest of your weekend, Sue. All my love to your success. We'll see everyone next week. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.